Hey, everybody, welcome to the Go to War podcast. This is your host, John Paramore. My co-host, Adam Smith, this is the last week he's out away from us. He is on duty doing some very important Adam Smith things. So you got me one more week. And then I can tell you, before we get deep into the podcast today, we got some incredible people that are going to be on the podcast over the next few weeks. We got some people coming into the office, coming into the studio. We got some people we're going to be talking to out of the office, outside of the studio, likely via Zoom. But we're going to bring you some additional people onto this podcast to add some additional value. So all we ask you guys to do is like this podcast, leave a comment on the podcast, and share the podcast. Like, that's the only way this podcast grows. You guys got to like it, share it, leave comments, and make sure other people know about it. That's it. That's all we ask, okay? The second part to this is on these podcasts, there are times, 99% of the time, 1% of the time we don't, but 99% of the time we use a little bit of salty language. If you find that offensive, this is not the podcast for you. So that's your fair warning to find something else to do at this point. All right, I want to talk to you guys about something, one of the topics I really love, okay? And I call it the excuse tax, okay? And a lot of you guys are going to understand exactly where I'm going with this right out of the gate. So what I don't want you to do is be like, oh, I know what he's going to say here and whatever, and then you like disengage or stop listening. I want you to follow me all the way through to the end, because I'm going to drop some things on you today that can radically shift and change your mindset when you think about a couple of issues. So what I like to do is I want you to just kind of stop for a second, and I want you to think about the largest deficiency or the largest issue that you have going on inside of your life right now, right? I don't care if that's with another human. I don't care if that's with inside yourself, the self-talk that you have going on. I don't care if it's like maybe you're avoiding ridding yourself of a bad habit, or you know of a bad habit that's been going on and lingering for a really long time and you just haven't done anything about it. I don't care if it's obesity. I don't care if it's high blood pressure. I don't care if it's diabetes. Whatever it is, the biggest, greatest deficiency in your life right now. Now, if it's your mother-in-law, I'm sorry. That's probably not something I'm going to help you rectify today, although this likely applies. But I just want you to think about the biggest deficiency you have going on. Now, I want you to think about, I don't want you to be overly analytical, and I don't want you to overthink the question that I'm about to follow up with. I want you just to think about the first thing that comes to mind. And if you're in a position and you're not listening to this driving down the road, I want you to write down the very first thing that comes to mind. The very first thing, okay? And here's the question. What is the direct action step that you could take right now to eliminate or alleviate whatever that greatest deficiency is? What is the greatest or the number one action step that you could take right now that would eliminate or alleviate whatever that deficiency is? I want you just to write it down. I don't want you to think about it. I don't want you to think how you're going to do it. I simply want you to write down, if I were to do this thing, this would eliminate or alleviate that problem. Here's what I want you to know. When I ask this question of most people, I don't care if it's one of my clients or if I'm having a conversation with people in my family or friends or whatever the case may be, it's shocking to me how many people know the answer. Like, they know it. Like there are some people that I've even asked this to where they know it. You can see it on their face the minute I ask the question, and they just don't want to say it. Like, they just don't want to enunciate it. Now, here's the problem with that, okay? This is where the excuse tax comes in. When you know what the solution is, when you're clear about what the solution is, but you just don't take action on it. You just don't do anything with it. What you don't understand is whatever the excuse is that's keeping you from doing it has a tax. And that tax looks like this, okay? If I don't do something about a problem that I have, okay, let's just take a thing here as an example. If I have high blood pressure and I don't do something to rectify that high blood pressure, regardless of the cost, regardless of the expense, regardless of the work that's included or has to be done, regardless of the sacrifices that I have to make, At some point in time, that high blood pressure will catch up. It will catch up. It will cause greater problems, okay? That could lead to stroke. That could lead to heart issues. That could lead to cognitive brain functional issues. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to go down the list of what the byproducts are or what happens as a result of long-term high blood pressure. But I will tell you, if you write that down, like if you know, okay, I've known for a long time that I'm obese. I know for a long time that I have high blood pressure. I've known for a long time that I have a business problem that I need to solve. And you know, like step number one is I got to go to the doctor. But you just keep putting it off. You just keep ignoring it like it's not a problem. When the price or when the malfunction of what you're ignoring happens, there will be a tax that's much greater than actually fixing the problem. And that tax, let's stay on the form of high blood pressure. That tax will affect and impact directly your kids. That tax will impact and directly impact or affect your family. That tax will impact or directly impact your friends, your coworkers, your teammates, your business, your clients. And I mean, the list is endless of the amount of people that will be impacted or infected directly as a result of your negligence. Because that's what the tax is. The excuse tax often warrants a negligent outcome. Because of your negligence, an outcome occurs that is directly the opposite of what would have occurred had you rectified the situation. And that's the tax. And so I want you to understand, maybe you wrote down one, but then another one popped up. And as I'm talking here, you're starting to think about all the areas in your life that maybe you've just minimized. You're like, well, I know that exists, but I'm not really to the point in my life where I want to do something about it. So what is the opposite of doing something about it? Excusing your way out of doing it. Coming up with an excuse that validates why not now, right? Now some people will say to me, when I've talked about this in the past, some people would say to me, dude, that list is never ending. That list is never ending. Like there's always going to be deficiencies that I have going on in my life, or there's always going to be a deficiency. Yeah, no shit. But guess what? There's also an excuse tax of compounding interest, which means when you decide not to do one thing and you decide to not take action on that thing, it doesn't mean that something else is not coming. You're going to get another one that builds up on it. Now we got 2 things you're not taking action on. Then you're going to get another one that builds up on it. Now we got 3 things that take action on, that we're not taking action on. Then 4, then 5. Now what tends to happen as they start to build up is you start to find ways to make the fucking noise in your head stop. And we've talked about this before. You start sedating and all kinds of bad shit starts to happen. And all you're trying to do is get the noise to stop. And what you don't understand is that directly impacts all the same people and all the same ways that I was talking about before, and sometimes magnified by 100 and felt much, much deeper and much, much greater. So you have to understand the excuse tax is really, really, really fucking expensive. Like the excuse tax, if you think about it just in like the grand scheme of things, okay? Let's say that you owe $100,000 in taxes, but you wait 10 years to pay it off. You factor in interest, penalties, all the other bullshit that goes along with it in combination with what that $100,000 could have made you, what the $100,000 could have made you had you had it sitting in some type of IRA or investment account, and the dividends that it could have paid out. And then you factor in things like today, in today's world, inflation. By the time you actually turn around and pay that off, it's exorbitant. It could be 5 to 10 times the amount that you actually owed because you were living in a space of, I don't feel like it, or I've got reasons why. You say reasons, I say excuses. I got reasons why I didn't pay it. I got reasons why I didn't do that thing. I got reasons why I didn't go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the doctor. I don't have time to deal with this problem. I don't have time to do da. Those are fucking excuses. And listen, I tell you these things not because I'm trying to be hard on you. I'm telling you these things because I have been in those spots and I fully fucking understand what the price is of negligent behavior and what happens when I decide to excuse out what I know is a problem because I just don't want to deal with it, right? But the reality is there will come a time where you have to deal with it. There have been many, many situations like that where I had to deal with it. And I'll tell you twofold. Number one, the price of dealing with it at that point, once I put it off for so long, the price of dealing with it at that point was always more costly. It fucking cost me way, way more. Time, energy, effort, maybe money. But the price to deal with it was always more. Okay, number one. Number two, the time if you just factor in the time lost with people as a result of putting that off and not dealing with it, also much, much greater. You don't get that. We don't get that time back, right? The amount of energy and effort and all that, we just don't get that stuff back. So I want you to really start to think about in your own world, if you just had to write down 5 right now, okay, here's the other really cool part. If you just had to write down 5 right now and you go deal with those 5 right now, you put your time and energy and effort, maybe financial resources in that, and you deal with those 5 now, there's also a sense of peace and calmness that comes with being done with it, right? I don't know if you've ever, been in that spot. Let's take something simple, right? I got to go fucking paint a room, right? I don't know how you feel about painting a house. It doesn't bother me, but I know other people, painting an interior room is like the fucking death of them. Like they will literally go to the store and buy the paint and buy the fucking supplies and sit them down inside that room and walk by them 50 fucking times because they loathe painting that much. And then when they finally just go in the room and they do the fucking setup work, even if they're mad about it, they're huffy about it, and they actually do the paint work and they stand back and look at what they've done and the sense of accomplishment and feeling at what they've done, it far outweighs all the fucking mental space and energy that they were putting out about loathing the fact that they had to paint that room. The price of actually doing the work and having a sense of accomplishment that it's done, it's over, I no longer have to worry about that specific task, far exceeded the anguish of putting it off and still knowing it was there, and putting it off and still knowing it was there. Like literally there have been times in my life where I'm laying in my bed at night, not able to fall asleep because I fucking know that there was something that I needed to deal with. And I fully intended to get up the next day and deal with it. But then I get up the next day and I fucking put it off again. And then I find myself back in that space the next night, having trouble falling asleep because I'm like, fuck, I still didn't deal with this thing. It's going to creep up on me at some point. And then you go, I mean, just think about that. Like the mental anguish and the time and the expense and all that shit it's insanity, right? It's insanity. But because I know that I'm not the only one that has repeated that cycle, I also wanted to come here and tell you guys, this is how you fucking break it. This is how you break it. If you want to beat the excuse tax, when those things come up, you take them on fucking head on. You go right at them head on. This is we have shirts. We have literal shirts that we sell on our GTW website, right? Which is gtapparel.com, or I'm sorry, gotowargear.com. But we have shirts on the site that specifically say, I do the work despite how I feel. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Because if you don't, and you only do it when you feel like it, the feel like it shit is what causes the excuse tax. I don't feel like it, add excuse, pay the tax. Right? So it's kind of like if you, like there's also an idiot tax. Maybe we save that for a different podcast. But sometimes the excuse tax becomes the idiot tax, right? So I just want you guys to know, and I wanted to come on and let you guys know, any of you guys who are going through this, here's the number one way that I beat this. I literally make lists of the things that I think about more than once, where I know it needs my attention now because it's gotten to a critical state, or it could get to a critical state if I don't address it right now. And I know that if I don't address it right now, I will pay the excuse tax later, and it will be colossal. The longer that I let it roll, the bigger that it's going to get. So I make a list now of what those things are. And then the second part to that list is I make a list of what has to happen in order for me to make those things stop or go away or be alleviated or eliminated. That's the next step. And then I fucking go to war on those things. I just start attacking them one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. I mean, I'll give you, there's been situations in my life where I'm like, okay, I knew this thing existed. If I go address it right now, it's going to cost me $100. But then I wait 10 years to address it. It costs me $100,000. So that's why I'm saying it's at some point in time, those things on that list are going to catch you. And the excuse tax is going to be big is going to be directly proportionate to however long you decided to wait. So you're not going to escape it. There's no escape from it. It's going to catch up to you at some point in time. You just have to decide when that's going to happen. Are you going to address it head on and fucking be proactive with it? Or are you just going to keep making excuses and let that shit eat you up? Those are really your only two options. Okay? So I want the best for you guys. I want you guys to not have to pay the excuse tax as much as possible. Obviously, at some point in our lives, we all pay it to some degree. But if you watch the uber ultra successful elite type of people, the minute they see these things starting to creep up, they know the fucking price because they've paid the excuse tax 1,000,000 times and they're sick of doing it. So now it's just easier for them, simpler for them to fucking get their heads on straight and start attacking those things. Okay, regardless of how they feel. So you guys know the drill. Again, I'm going to just reiterate this for you. Make a list of the things that you know in your life right now that you've been avoiding, that are causing you strife, that are causing you sleepless nights, that are causing you pain, that you know that if you keep just letting those things go, the excuse tax is going to be huge. And then start making lists and start breaking down how you plan to solve and fix those things. Eliminate them and alleviate them. That's it. That's the key. Okay? And I promise you the sense of accomplishment that you feel is going to be much, much greater. So the only other thing you guys got to do, you guys know the drill. By the time that you're listening to this podcast, we're 100 plus deep. You guys know the drill. You got to do the work. You got to get your fucking mind right. You got to go to war.